"Sir, we got a call about a possible trespasser on your property." I blinked at the officer, confusion flooding my mind. I was relaxing in my own backyard, towel draped around my shoulders, the sun warming my skin, when the black and white patrol car rolled up like a scene out of a forgotten cop drama. My neighbor, Nancy, loomed nearby, arms crossed tightly, her expression a mix of triumph and disdain that made my stomach churn. "Trespasser?" I repeated incredulously, disbelief creeping into my voice. "I live here." The officer looked perplexed, glancing between me and Nancy. "Claims you've been squatting here." Squatting? I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. It felt surreal, as if I was stepping into a bizarre theatrical play that I hadn't auditioned for. I had built this ranch with my own 2 hands, a place I had fought for after years of service as a firefighter. "Do you have any ID?" he asked, seemingly oblivious to the brewing storm at my side. "Of course I have ID," I replied sharply, irritation seeping into my tone. I dug into my wallet and threw down my veteran's card and deed like they were weapons in this ridiculous battle, a desperate attempt to reclaim my dignity. "See this? I own this property. I moved here to escape nonsense like this." He studied my ID carefully, his brows furrowed in concentration, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I might have turned the tide. Perhaps I could break through the haze of suspicion cast by Nance's insidious claims. But then, the crackle of his radio jolted him back to the moment. "Control. Dispatch." I overheard, voices crackling through the static. "We're on scene. The resident claims ownership." Nance's smirk morphed into a self-satisfied grin as she whispered something to another officer who had just arrived, a man with a chiseled jaw and an intimidating demeanor. I could see the glint in her eyes, a spark of vindictiveness that sent a shiver down my spine. What tale had she spun about me? This was more than a neighborly rivalry. It felt like an all-out smear campaign, and I was the unwitting protagonist in her twisted narrative. "Mr. Turner," the first officer said, returning my ID with a measured look, "I'm going to need to ask you to come down to the station to clear up the complaint." Complaints? My heartbeat quickened, fury igniting within me. My vision narrowed, focusing solely on Nancy, whose self-righteous victory dance felt like a blade being twisted deeper into my side. If she thought she could intimidate me, she had another thing coming. I was not just any victim. I had left behind a profession where I faced flames and danger without hesitation. "Fine," I huffed, mentally bracing myself for the ordeal ahead. Every second felt like an eternity as I climbed into the back of the patrol car, the door shutting with a finality that echoed my own anxious thoughts. How did it come to this? The scent of the vinyl seat mixed with the faint aroma of pine from my ranch, a stark reminder of the life I should have been enjoying. As the car began to roll away, I peered out the window, Nance's diabolical grin becoming smaller in the distance, but her impact echoed in my mind. Waves of anxiety and anger washed over me. Thoughts raced like wildfire. Was there something more to her hatred? Did she perceive me as a threat? Or was it simply jealousy for having what she could not? "Mr. Turner," the officer said as we turned onto the main road, his voice slicing through my turbulent thoughts. "I understand this is frustrating, but I need to gather your side of the story." Gather my side? Did they realize their investigation was being based on a fabric of lies? I could feel my pulse thrumming in my ears as the gravity of the situation weighed down on me. "Look," I said, striving to maintain my composure, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm willing to explain, but this is absurd. I moved here to lead a quiet life, not to become embroiled in petty disputes." He nodded but didn't try to offer reassurance, and I could see doubt lingering in his expression, a flicker of uncertainty that made me question my chances of standing my ground against Nance's manipulations. Pulling into the police station parking lot felt like sinking into quicksand. The air was thick with tension as I stepped out, my fists clenched at my sides, my heart racing with the anticipation of what awaited me inside. The station loomed before me, its brick facade imposing. As we approached the entrance, Officer Daniels glanced back at me. "Just stick to the facts, Mr. Turner. Whatever personal grievances you have with your neighbor, they can't dictate the truth." Those words echoed in my mind as I squared my shoulders and stepped inside, determined not to let Nance's games define me. It was time to draw a line, to reclaim my life. Whatever it took, I wasn't going down without a fight. I stepped into the police station, the door swinging shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my mind. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a harsh glow on the faded blue walls. Anxiety churned in my stomach as I faced the serious expressions around me, the weight of suspicion palpable in the air. "Mr. Toner, follow me," Officer Daniels said, gesturing toward a small room in the back. I swallowed hard but nodded, my heart racing. My pulse echoed in my ears as I entered the interrogation room, sparsely furnished with a metal table and 2 plastic chairs. He motioned for me to take a seat across from him. "Let's get this straight," he said, leaning forward, hands clasped. "What exactly is going on between you and your neighbor?" "Nothing," I replied, the word escaping in a frustrated huff. "She's made her mind up about me. That's the problem." "I need more than that," he insisted, his brow furrowing. "Why would she make a false claim against you?" "Because she's vindictive," I snapped, heat rising in my cheeks. "I've tried to keep to myself, but she's always trying to poke at me. Why now, though? It doesn't make sense." He studied me for a moment, the tension thickening. "You've lived in close quarters. There must be something that triggered this." Without thinking, I recalled how last week Nancy had stormed over, demanding I cut down the trees lining our properties. She claimed they blocked her view, but I suspected it was more about her wanting control. I recounted the argument, my voice steadying as I spoke about her threats about calling the authorities. "And now?" Daniels asked, his pen hovering over paper. "Did you confront her again?" Only to tell her no, I answered, frustration bubbling. "I have a right to my property. I'm just trying to live my life." Daniels sighed, tapping his pen against the table. "We may need to bring her in for questioning." "Do it," I said, finally feeling a flicker of hope. But even as the words left my mouth, dread crept in. What if she twisted everything? Just then, the door swung open, revealing Officer Carter, the second officer from earlier. "We've got a situation," he said urgently, his eyes darting between us. "Nancy's at her house, and she's screaming about someone breaking in." I leaned back, disbelief slamming into me like a freight train. "That's impossible. I've been here." "I know," Daniel said, his brow furrowing. "But we need to check it out." Before I could respond, both officers moved to leave. "Wait!" I called out, a sense of urgency flooding my voice. "If she's claiming a break-in, she'll twist this against me. You have to listen to my side." Carter shot me a sympathetic look. "Stay here," he said. "We'll be back." They disappeared down the corridor, leaving me gripping the edge of the table. The silence in the room was oppressive, every tick of the wall clock echoing loud in my ears. My mind raced. Could Nancy be this reckless? Would she stop at nothing to ruin me? As minutes stretched into what felt like hours, I paced, the urge to confront her raging inside me. Finally, the door creaked open, and Daniels returned, this time with an unsettling expression etched across his face. "Nancy's been injured," he said, voice low, heavy with something like dread. "We need to hear your side before we investigate further." "Injured?" My heart raced. "Is she okay?" "We don't know yet," he replied, the weight of the words hanging between us. "But the break-in wasn't only a fabrication. It's complicated." "What do you mean?" I demanded. The way she described the scene, "It's bizarre," Daniel said, frustration lining his features. "It appears she was cut, but she's not acting like a victim. It's as if she's trying to push an agenda." My stomach dropped. Was this a plan all along? To create chaos, to paint me as a perpetrator in her desperate scheme? "Where is she now?" I pressed. "Back at her property," Carter said, stepping back into the room. "We're going to need backup to handle this properly." I took a breath, determination flooding through me. "I'm coming with you. She won't get away with this." I knew it was reckless, but I couldn't let Nancy draw me into her web of lies without a fight. The officers exchanged glances but nodded. "Fine," Daniel said, motioning for me to follow. As we headed out, the tension crackled in the air, and I steeled myself for what awaited us. With each step toward her house, a mixture of concern and adrenaline coursed through my veins. A part of me worried for Nancy. Was she truly hurt, or was this just another facet of a twisted game? Whatever was about to unfold, I knew one thing for certain. The stakes were incredibly high, and this would be a confrontation that neither of us would soon forget. We raced toward Nancy's house, the weight of uncertainty hanging between us like a fog. My heart pounded in sync with my footsteps. What did she say happened? I shot a glance at Carter, who was keeping pace beside me. She claimed someone broke in and attacked her, he replied, his jaw tight. But the way she described it, it didn't add up. Didn't add up? I spat, frustration boiling over. What do you mean? An attack is an attack. I mean, he replied, urgency sharpening his tone. There's a discrepancy. She mentioned a knife, but also said she heard footsteps before anything happened. We're trying to piece together the timeline. It's strange. My mind raced, grappling between concern for Nancy and the growing fear that this was all part of a scheme to drag me down further into her chaos. And you don't think it's possible she's using this to frame me for something? Right now, we need to focus, Daniel said, taking the lead into her driveway. The porch light flickered, casting an eerie glow on the front door, which stood slightly ajar. Stay behind me, Daniels instructed as he approached. I nodded, but adrenaline surged through me, pushing me to the forefront. Wait, I called out, suddenly gripped by a sense of foreboding. We need to be careful. What if she set up a trap? Both officers exchanged glances before regrouping, tension thickening the air around us. Let's clear the house, Carter said, his voice resolute. They moved forward, and I followed closely, my instinct screaming at me to pay attention. The door creaked open as Daniels pushed it further. A darkened hallway stretched out before us, shadows dancing in the corners. Nancy, Daniels called, stepping inside. Silence enveloped us like a dark shroud. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest as I held my breath, fear tightening its grip around my throat. Nothing in the living room, Carter said, peering around the corner. We're going upstairs. Wait! I urged, my voice tight. If she's really hurt, we should call out for her first. Right, Daniels conceded. Nancy, are you there? Still no response. As they began to ascend the staircase, I moved closer, my nerves crackling. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why would she go quiet if she needed help? They reached the second-floor landing, and a yell pierced the stillness, slicing through the air. Get back! Nancy's voice was frantic, tinged with an edge I'd never heard before. I froze at the base of the stairs. What's happening? Daniel shouted, scrambling up to her. I said, get back! She screamed again, her tone laced with panic. He's still here. A shiver raced down my spine as I exchanged glances with Carter. Who's still here? I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. Nancy. Carter called. Show us where you are. I'm in the bathroom, she yelled, her voice breaking now. I don't know what he wants. Just call for help. My gut churned. Something felt horribly wrong. Nancy. I shouted, needing to reach her to ensure she was safe. We'll be there, Daniels replied. As the officers reached the bathroom door, I sprinted up the stairs, adrenaline driving me beyond thought. The door swung open, and Nancy emerged, her face pale and eyes wild. I didn't notice the figure lurking behind her until it was too late. A man, disheveled and menacing, lunged at me, a glint of metal flashing in his hand. Get back, all of you, he snarled, his voice low and threatening. My heart stopped. Nancy, no. I shouted, instinct kicking in. I shoved her to the side just as the man swung the knife in our direction. The blade brushed my arm, a sharp sting igniting my senses. Carter was on it in an instant, body-checking the intruder, but the man was strong, grappling back. Get away from her. Carter shouted, struggling to keep him at bay. Daniel pulled out his weapon, aiming it at the assailant. Drop the knife. Now. The man's eyes darted around, and for a moment, a flicker of panic crossed his face. He knew he was cornered. You don't understand. I didn't want to hurt anyone, he spat, trying to squirm free of Carter's grasp. Who are you? I demanded, adrenaline fueling my courage as I edged closer, my pulse racing.
Just let her go, and I'll leave, he pleaded, a desperate edge creeping into his voice. I was just looking for her, she knows too much. What did you mean by that? Daniels pressed, keeping his gun steady. The man's eyes gleamed with insanity. You don't know what she's involved in. She plays a dangerous game. Before I could process his words, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, followed by frantic shouting. Backup is on the way. Carter shouted, tightening his grip. The assailant's resolve faded, and with a sudden burst of strength, he shoved Carter aside, darting toward the window. No! I lunged forward, desperation fueling my sprint, but he was quicker. He leaped through the open window, shattering glass and diving into the night. All units, suspect is fleeing. Daniels barked into his radio, racing to the window. Nancy! I turned to her, finding her shock morphing into fear. What did he mean? What do you know? But before she could answer, sirens blared outside, and chaos erupted as the officers spilled into the house, ready to contain the aftermath of this madness. Nancy! I pressed, urgency flooding my words. But she simply stared, unblinking, lost in the storm of the moment. Stay close. Daniels snapped, and I stepped back, feeling the cracked shards of glass beneath my feet. Whatever had just unfolded, one thing was certain, this wasn't over. We were caught in a web far thicker and darker than I had ever imagined, and I was determined to unravel its secrets. Each breath felt heavier, tension crackling in the air, pushing us closer to a truth that was far more dangerous than I could have anticipated. Everyone, secure the perimeter. Daniels commanded, moving with purpose as more officers flooded into the room. Panic ignited within me, a fiery mix of fear and determination. I turned to Nancy, who still hadn't moved, her eyes wide but vacant, as if she was trapped in a nightmare. Nancy, talk to me. I urged, shaking her slightly. What does he know? What game have you been playing? She blinked, as if waking from a stupor. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Didn't mean for what to happen. I pressed, glancing over my shoulder where Daniels and Carter were coordinating with other officers to set up a blockade outside. A sudden crash echoed from the hallway, and my heart skipped. They're chasing him. I shouted, adrenaline coursing through my veins. We have to get out of here. He might come back. No, Nancy said, her tone firm, surprising me. You need to understand. He's not just a thief, he's connected. Panic flared in her eyes as she flinched at a crashing sound below. Connected to what? I demanded, urgency lacing my voice. But before she could answer, one of the officers burst back into the room, breathless. The suspect is in the alley. Suddenly, he froze, eyes wide. Nancy, are you all right? He knows something, I interjected, frustration boiling over. What is it? What are you involved in? She turned to me, fear and guilt swirling in her gaze. I didn't want to drag you in. Drag me into what? I shouted, but her words drowned in the clamoring sounds from outside. More than you can imagine, she finally cried, her voice filled with desperation. I thought I could handle it, but now it's out of control. When he said I knew too much, he meant it. The officers scrambled, someone calling for backup. My mind raced through possibilities. What could she be mixed up in? Could this all be about the shady deals I'd overheard in passing conversations? What deals, Nancy? Tell me. She hesitated, the weight of the decision evident on her face. It's about the property across the street. There are plans to cover it up, illegal dealings. Before I could process this revelation, there was an urgent shout from the officers as they averted their attention to the chaos unfolding outside. The suspect's getting away. Stop! I yelled. Gotta get this information out of her. What lies beneath the deals? I'm telling you, she cried, trembling. He was going to expose everything, but I was the one. Expose what? I pressed desperately, feeling the walls of uncertainty close and around me.
But there was a deafening explosion. A blinding flash of light erupted just outside, a shockwave crashing against the house. The sound rattled my bones as a window shattered, sending shards of glass flying through the air like frozen rain. "No!" I shouted, ducking instinctively. Panic erupted around me, officers scrambling for cover. What just happened? Chaos reigned as screams echoed from the aluminum structures in the alley. I looked to Nancy, watching her face drain of color. "We have to get out," she yelled, her voice cracking. "They are not just after him anymore. They are coming for me." "Why?" I gasped, still reeling from the explosion. "Because I found something," she gasped, pulling away from me to move toward the window. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I caught her arm, desperate urgency flooding my veins. "Stop. We don't know if it's coming back. You have to trust me." Just then, Daniels motioned us to follow him. "We need to relocate." He was working with someone. "It's too dangerous here." In that moment, I felt it, the apprehension tightening the air, a gripping sense that this was much bigger than I had envisioned. Wrenching free of Nancy's grasp, I grabbed her shoulders. "Tell me who." Before she could answer, the front door splintered with crashing sound, a man bursting through, face contorted with rage. The look in his eyes cast out an undeniable message. He wasn't here to reason. He was here to end this. "Stop!" Daniel shouted, drawing his weapon, but the man was unyielding, rushing past him with the fury of a cornered animal. "Get away from her!" I yelled, stepping protectively in front of Nancy. A reckless move, but desperation coursed through my veins. "Move!" Daniel shouted, but I couldn't. The man lunged for Nancy, his hands outstretched, and in a flash, she reached into her pocket, pulling out a small flash drive. "Take it. You need this," she yelled, tossing it to me just as the assailant struck. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. I dodged, feeling the impact of his fist graze my side. The drive fell to the floor, clattering against the tiles. "Get it!" I screamed to Carter, who was still reeling from the chaos. He lunged for the flash drive, but the man, wild-eyed and desperate, knocked him aside and dove for Nancy. I reacted instinctively, wrenching the man's arm and flipping him onto the ground. The impact echoed, the man grunting in pain. But as I prepared to pin him down, his eyes widened in realization. "You don't know what you've just done," he spat. "None of you do. You're all in danger now." With a swift kick, he sent me sprawling backward, then leaped to his feet, rushing for the door. "Nancy, get down!" I shouted, but she was already moving away from the chaos to retrieve the flash drive. Just as she grabbed it, the man turned around with an eerie smile, his eyes glinting with malice. "I'm coming for you. You can't hide," he snarled, disappearing into the night. The officers stormed the room, and my breath stilled. "Did we get him?" Carter panted, adrenaline still etched across his face. "No." I breathed, my attention darting between Nancy and Daniels. "What is on that drive?" "I can't explain it all right now, but you have to trust me, okay? That drive holds the secrets to everything. If it gets in the wrong hands..." More officers rushed inside, taking control of the situation, but before I could process our next move, the weight of what had just happened crashed over me. The man had meant what he said. Things were spiraling out of control, and we were caught in the center of a storm with no escape in sight. Just then, I heard Daniel speaking into his radio, voice steady but filled with urgency. "We need to block off the exits. This goes deeper than we thought." "What do we do?" I asked, heart racing. Nancy clutched the drive in her hands, and I saw a flicker of defiant spark in her eyes. "We find out what's on it, and we expose them first," she declared, her determination shining through the chaos. "They think they can intimidate me. They think I'll bow down. But I won't, and neither will you. We'll fight." Just as she finished, a shrill alarm began to sound, blaring through the house. Someone shouted from outside, "It's a lockdown. We're surrounded." Confusion spread through the officers, chaos taking over as they frantically reported in and out. But as I turned to Nancy, Ready to join her in whatever was coming next, a chilling thought dug into my mind. What if it's too late? Before I could voice my doubts, a bombshell dropped. Your lives aren't the only ones at stake. A voice echoed from the shadows, calm and predatory. Welcome to the game, everyone. The lights flickered once, then died, plunging us into darkness. And as we stood there, fear prickling along my skin, I realized the fight had only just begun, and the real battle lay ahead, one that would unravel truths more shocking than we could ever have imagined.